Hello, this is Matt Goodman. It's November 22nd, 2014. Time for another layout update. New, I think since the last time, was the extension of the trim coil backdrop down to the far end of the staging area. We're on the north side of the basement, which is going to be a staging level and a scenic engine facility if the plans don't change. Other things new is the second set of spline I put in is here, and I'll talk about more about that in a moment. That's a 32-inch radius curve going through the wall. The holes to the wall were already there. The cutout here is new. That was cut with an oscillating saw, which worked pretty good for this purpose. Again, that's just aluminum trim coil, and the oscillating saw had the right teeth per inch, was just correct for that kind of metal. This is an example of where the spline interacts with the staging table, staging drawer slide. This is just 1x4 hair ply, and it's also got a 1x2 piece of ply going straight down to give some stiffness this way. This is at a slightly different angle than the drawer slide for the staging yard itself. So this comes out at approximately a 30-degree angle. I have no idea what the actual angle is, but that's what it was designed to be. And this is a slightly different angle, the idea being that the staging drawer will move away from this abutment as it slid out, so hopefully that way the rails won't come into contact with one another until they're right next to one another. So it should slide in as well as in this way. One challenge is going to be to make sure that this stays flush. When I first built these two things, in fact, were flush, and right now is about a 1/16 of an inch drop between this and this. So I'll have to continue working on that. Slight variance between this end and the far end. On this end, the abutment side ended up being a little higher relative to the drawer slide, so it had a slight cut through it to take care of that. To bind the spline with the abutment, I came up with this idea of just pinching it. I wanted this to be more or less floating. Well, I'll take that back. What I wanted was to make sure that this was a continuous plane through here. This is actually on a slight grade going towards the right, and I want to make sure that grade didn't occur at one spot. I didn't want it to go bink up on a kink here. So this is held more or less flat right through here via this pinch with a 4-inch carriage bolt. And then after this point, the spline is allowed to take its natural curvature up. The final gradient hasn't been set there, but it's close. Down at the other end, we have something similar. Another abutment. As you can see on this end, there is no need to make a cut. This end also has a different attachment method, mainly because it just happened to be right over an existing piece of the benchwork. So Dad he worked on this end, just put a little more wood on this side, so end up with an 1.5-inch wide shelf, and just screw directly down into it and sanded that smooth. So we have a nice joint there. I'll probably end up having to make that a little wider in order to make the track come off here. You can see the line where the layout is, where I have the tracks laid out right here according to my design. There's a slight kink there, so I'll probably have to cheat it around here a little bit. These things are shims. One thing that hotel key cards come in handy for is shims and glue spreaders, so keep yours around. This end also goes slightly upgrade. It gains about, I think about 1/2 inch is what it came out to be. And to do this, ended up just notching the bench work and notched a little lower than it needed to be, and I wanted to shim up as I need to get that grade correct. Right now it's very close, so this is going to be under 1% all the way around to the far end. The other thing these notches do is keep the spline in alignment. Spline, as you just noticed, is not anchored down except in a few places, like back here. The idea behind that being to let it float. So the spline will find its kind of its own happy place. So each of these are a little loose and it can move around. I'll see you later if I need to actually anchor that at some point. And further around, after I get out of the notched area, I end up using bits of Homasote. These splines are 1.5 inch high, and these little blocks here are the spline cut to 3/4 inch wide, well, 3/4 inch section of it. Use those to just kind of form two shoes to hold that in place. And yeah, for right now that's going to work. I'll probably keep it that way. The splines themselves are, like I said, 1/2 inch pieces of Homasote, screw together, no glue. The gentleman that inspired me to do it this way is a big fan of just a screwing approach because it's quicker. You just line your splines up and shoot a drywall screw through and you're done. These on average around here, I've kind of standardized on 8 inches per screw, so I'll go one this way, then 4 inches later one come the other way. So 8 inches on the center on one side, 8 inches staggered on the center on the other side, just to see the pants feel. No idea if that's good or not, but so far it's working fine. One of the benefits of spline, of course, is that it kind of finds its own curvature. So I tell it where the curve needs to stop, right here, let it find its way onto the straight. A few places I have to inspire it where to be, so I've got a few shoes there as well. And then along here, it's a slight outrigger from the bench work. This will be exposed part. I didn't want this to be hidden too long because, again, this is the staging level, so for the most part it's going to be, well, it will be lower than the scenic level. And given it's a very long run, this basically just forms one great big return loop going through the wall there to the staging level and around here. And I didn't want it to be hidden too long, so it's going to be exposed on the outside of the layout. And then to make this curve back to the end of the layout, I had to make a quick curve in this way so I could stay under a 30-inch radius on the curve down here. One of the benefits of screwing is that it's very flexible in that if you screw something up, you can unscrew it and put it together again, and you can see that I have put screws in multiple places through here. Most recently, just tonight, I took it apart again, put it back together because I found that the radius tightened up a little bit over my 30-inch preference. On the curves further up that way, I had trouble with these butts where two pieces of spline came together. They caused quite a bit of pressure point on the curvature, so I started cutting them at 45 degrees to kind of spread that load out over a larger area. That seems to have worked pretty well. Main thing is to just make sure that they are good and clamped around this area as you're bending it so it doesn't tend to break. I have broken one spline doing this. And this brings us up to where I got to today, which is here, and this is a work in progress. This piece of plywood here represents its 29¼ inch radius outside curve, which with a 4 spline setup, that comes out to be a centerline 30-inch radius. Is that right? My math is right. Anyway, so this will be this 4 spline setup is temporary. Once it gets into an exposed area, which is right about here, I should say a scenic area, it's going to go down 3 splines wide. That's wide enough for the track, and then eventually it'll have 2 half splines attached to the sides that will represent the shoulder, the ballast shoulder. So the process is just to get the splines more or less lined up, give it a good clamp. Once they're lined up, shoot a screw through it. And this is all more or less just clamped in place till I get everything lined up as I want to. Make sure the splines are the same height. And of course, right now I have it clamped to this template to make sure I don't get any tighter than 30 inches. And so after I line it up, start shooting a screw through, then I'll work around this way. That way the splines, I don't end up with a bow in it where I have too much spline left over from one side or another. So I just clamp it, screw it, clamp it, screw it, clamp it, screw it all the way around. And off it goes this way. And eventually it'll climb uphill around this way, and it's only the scenic level starting right here, and then come back through here and go into Circleville about 8 inches higher. That's it for this update.